Imagine you are standing in the middle of a winter land where everything has been erased. No roads, no landmarks, no maps, no GPS. Only white snow stretching all the way to the horizon and a lead gray sky pressing down like the lid of a coffin. The wind blows without stopping, cutting into your flesh, carrying a cold that makes your breath burn from the very first inhale. In that world, getting lost is not an inconvenience. It is a death sentence. Today, if a phone loses signal for just a few hours, modern humans already begin to panic. But for thousands of years, millions of people passed through winters like this, walking through forests, crossing snowfields, traversing glaciers, without any navigational tools at all. No one pointed the way, no signs, no turn back if you're wrong. One wrong decision, one misjudged direction, could cause an entire family to disappear forever beneath the silent snow. Films make us believe that people in the past traveled by instinct or luck. The truth is far more brutal. They survived not through recklessness, but through a cold and precise survival system built from observation, collective memory, and deaths that were never recorded. Every step taken in winter carried the same question. Would you still be alive to take another step tomorrow? In this video, we will step into that world, a place where humans found safe routes through deadly winters, not with technology, but with memory, nature, and the limits of their own bodies. And when we reach the final method, you will realize something terrifying. We lost it a very long time ago. Winter in the pre-industrial world did not only bring cold, it brought erasure. Snow covered everything, leveling roads, swallowing footpaths, turning familiar routes into anonymous white fields. Forests fell into a silence so deep, it became frightening. Rivers and streams froze solid, hiding the true boundary between life and death. In that world, people did not get lost in the modern sense. They were erased from the map of the living. There was no concept of, if you go the wrong way, you can turn back. Every step in deep snow was an exchange of energy. The body lost heat faster than it could produce it. Carried food was limited. Night was long and merciless. Many people did not die from the cold itself, but from exhaustion before they ever realized they had chosen the wrong direction. That is why winter navigation was never a question of which route is shortest. It was always the question of which route kills the fewest people. People of the past understood this. They did not find their way by a single sign. They built an entire survival system in which each element was only a thin layer of insurance. The first layer was wind. Winter wind is not random. It follows large terrain features, mountain slopes, valleys, open corridors. Travelers learned to read wind not only through their skin, but through sound. The whistle of wind through dead tree trunks, the way it was bent by rock faces, the way it weakened when approaching dense forest. Walking against the wind for too long was a dangerous sign. It stole heat, ground down strength, and pushed the human body toward the edge of exhaustion. But wind was only the beginning. Snow was the true judge. Snow is never the same. Freshly fallen snow is light and fine, sinking deep to the knees. Old snow, compressed by wind and time, is harder and easier to walk on. Experienced travelers knew that safe routes were often not in beautiful places, but where snow had been scoured thin by wind or packed down by repeated footsteps. One step sinking deeper than usual was a warning. 2 steps in a row were a signal to stop, because every centimeter sunk into snow was a piece of energy being stolen. When the sky allowed it, The sun became a crude compass. In winter, the sun never climbs high. It slides low along the horizon, leaving behind a faint halo of light. Even when clouds covered everything, light still spread in a certain direction. People of the past learned to read that fragile difference, learned to see faint shadows cast on snow, learned to remember the time of day through the rhythm of their own bodies. This was not instinct. This was a skill passed down with severity because the price of learning it wrong was death. And then there was water. Winter rivers and streams were a dangerous invitation. They were flat, easy to walk on, but hid deadly traps. Travelers learned to read the color of ice, to hear the faint cracking beneath their steps, to recognize places where running water never fully froze. One wrong step could pull an entire body into freezing water that stole life in just minutes. That is why rivers were not paths, but boundaries that had to be respected. Each sign was only one fragment. No single fragment was enough to save a life, and people of the past understood that very clearly. But winter never allows humans to rely on any system for too long. The wind can change direction within a single afternoon. Fresh snowfall can erase every trace in just a few minutes. The sun can disappear completely after a white storm, when sky and ground merge into one, stripping humans of any sense of direction. And glaciers, which once guided safe passage, can turn into a doorway to death with a single faint crack beneath one's feet. As each layer of insurance collapses in turn, the traveler enters the most dangerous zone, the place where there is nothing left to trust absolutely. There, they begin to rely on another system, older and more dangerous: animals. Not by blindly following tracks, but through subtle distinction. The tracks of an animal searching for food are different from those of one migrating. Footprints that are straight, steady, without wandering often lead to safer ground. People of the past knew that there are creatures that never choose paths that kill themselves. Deer, reindeer, wolves. They sense thin ice, hollow snow, dead. Ground through instincts humans do not possess. But even that was not certain. There were winters so harsh that animals died as well. There were tracks that led into deep snow pits, where wind had created a perfect trap. There were rivers frozen long enough to deceive both wild beasts and humans alike. Once again, trust was betrayed, and tension was driven even higher. When visibility dropped to nothing, people of the past turned to listening. Winter was terrifyingly silent, and within that silence, sound became a map. Footsteps sounded different on lake ice than in dense forest. The wind changed rhythm as it passed through wide open spaces. Long echoes signaled a deep valley ahead. Travelers learned to listen to themselves to understand the space around them, as if darkness and snow were speaking in a very ancient language. But then the blizzard arrived. Wind howled and tore apart every sound. Snow swallowed eyes, ears, and awareness. At that moment, all familiar senses became nearly useless, and this is when the true climax appeared. When humans could no longer see, could no longer hear clearly, could no longer trust tracks. They were forced to rely on the last thing left: collective memory. Winter routes were never drawn on paper. They were carved into stories, into songs, into words spoken beside the fire. Walk 3 days, and you will reach the bent tree. When you hear water roaring beneath the snow, turn. These seemingly vague phrases were in fact maps encoded with survival experience. Those who traveled alone rarely returned. Those who traveled with the memory of the community had a chance. But even memory was not unchanging. Forests were cut down. Rivers changed course. Climate shifted. There were winters when the safe paths of the ancestors became the death paths of their descendants. And at that point, the climax reached its most dangerous peak. Every external system had failed. If you were in that situation, what would you trust to keep moving forward? Share your thoughts in the comments, because that very answer will lead us to the final secret in the next part. When all external signs disappeared, people of the past were forced to face a terrifying truth. There was nothing left to cling to except themselves. And it is precisely here that the great twist of the story is revealed. The final method that helped them survive was not found in snow, not in wind, not in animals or collective memory. It was found inside the human body. Winter travelers did not only read nature, they read themselves. They understood that the body was like a crude but honest measuring instrument. When fingers began to lose sensation, it was not just cold, but a sign they had gone too far. When breathing became rapid and shallow, it was not just fatigue, but a warning that energy was running out. When thoughts slowed, when decisions became impulsive or reckless, that was not courage, but a brain starved of heat and oxygen. People of the past learned to stop before their bodies betrayed them. They turned back while strength still remained, not when despair had already set in. They understood that in winter, moving forward was not always the bravest choice. Sometimes, the choice that ensured survival was to give up. This stands in complete opposition to modern thinking, where humans are taught to push through, to conquer, to keep going at any cost. The answer of the story lies here. Pre-industrial humans were not stronger than we are. They were more humble before nature. They did not believe they could defeat winter. They believed they could only survive if they listened to their limits. Every decision to turn back was not a failure, but a silent victory over death. While modern humans place absolute trust in devices, people of the past placed their trust in a fragile but honest system. The feeling of cold, the onset of fatigue, the rhythm of the heart, the breath. They did not need to know where they were on a map. They only needed to know whether they still had the capacity to survive the night. And that was precisely what helped them find the safest routes. Not because they knew more, but because they knew when to stop. Not because they could see farther, but because they accepted that there were moments when nature always saw farther than humans. Today, we live in a world where every road is already drawn. Maps detailed down to the meter. GPS tells us where to turn, how far to go, how many minutes it will take. But the paradox lies here. Never have humans been more lost than they are now. Not lost in snowy forests, but lost from the ability to listen to the environment, to listen to the body, and to listen to the limits of oneself. Winter travelers of the past did not leave behind heroic journals. Most who chose the wrong path disappeared in silence, buried by snow along with their mistakes. Those who survived did not do so because they were braver, but because they understood a very simple truth. Winter cannot be defeated. It can only be respected. They did not try to move faster than nature, but learned to move in rhythm with it. This story is not only about winter roads that vanished with time. It is about how humans face uncertainty. When there is no clear map for the future, when familiar landmarks disappear, when every decision carries risk. People of the past teach us that survival does not come from one great decision, but from hundreds of small choices made at the right moment. Stopping when necessary, turning back while strength still remains, moving slowly so as not to push oneself into a place from which there is no return. Perhaps the greatest thing we have lost is not the skill of finding our way, but the ability to accept limits. We believe technology will always correct our mistakes, but winter does not care about that belief. Nature only responds to the actions we choose. If one day you are forced to face a road with no signs, no map, no ready-made answers, what will you choose to trust? Intuition, experience, or the very small signals from the body that we so often ignore? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you find these forgotten survival stories worth continuing to explore, consider subscribing to the channel, because sometimes understanding how humans once survived is the best way to know how we should live today.